audible? Yeah. Thank you, Vivek. I am charmed. Before I say another word, it's like coming home. It's a homecoming for me. There are people I've met after, wow, I see them around the table, 20 years, maybe 22 years, and there's still so much affection. I see Sri Verma here, Sri Gupta here, and I'm so delighted to make that effort. I see friends from 83, 86. I see friends over the years. I see family. My mom who's come all the way last night. I see a senior of mine who's come from Mahindra. Unbelievable. I see two of my or three of my colleagues who worked with me when I was here. But so many years ago, I left Chandigarh wow, in 2003 and never quite came back except for that 1 year. But it feels like, as I said, coming home. And with you, Aman ma'am, and of course, Cham. With you, I feel the presence of Shri Guru Singh Ji also. I know the blessings are there. I want to thank you all. There are people I do not know around the table. Those who are here from Chandigarh Literacy Society. I hope we get to know each other through my books soon. This particular book, if I come back to it, is basically, as you rightly said, started with Lakshmi saying, "Ma, why don't you correct the narrative?" There was this huge TV debate where it's a COVID book. So when he said, "I've been churning out books," that yeah, these 2 or 3 books have come out during the COVID times because I had a lot of things that you couldn't do earlier, you could do now. I come welcome. And what happened was that we kind of rarely watch TV. Arnab Goswami kind of show where the sky is black and the world is blue and IS is to blame was the story. The end all was the IS is to blame, and I think my daughter and my children, like everyone's children, have been through the tribulations we've all been through. I told you that why don't you correct the narrative, talk about the kind of pressures you guys face, the kind of problems you have, despite that, how you come out a winner. And then I did the next best thing, is I think I'm going to read from the book and tell you why this happened. From the author's note, I quote, "Stories of women are seldom told, and I wonder why some stories do not get told. There are several autobiographies and a few biographies of officers in the public domain. Most of what is being published so far is about the contribution of a few gentlemen about what they've done with their own lives. But stories of women of influence in the civil services remain untold. This book is a compilation of hitherto untold stories of 10 empowered civil servants, inspiring women who walk that extra mile and made a difference. It's about these extraordinary women in the IS who've done some brilliant work under intense pressure and in adverse circumstances. Protagonists in the book are representative of a larger set of dynamic civil servants working against all odds. So they're representative of a bigger whole. But what I really want to say is that every person has one, there is a lot of diversity in the book, to read the book. Starting with the first one goes back to 1965 during the Indo-Pak War. And these are not biographies. They're not boring. I did this when I kind of died monologue. They actually relate moments and events and episodes, policy interventions which made a huge difference. At that particular time, the person was absolutely extraordinary. Now that is not to say that I'm putting the person on a pedestal or saying that these are the only ones who are very good. There are so many others. But these are the stories that I picked out of the 67 odd stories I've had with me. And my next sequel, which would come out soon, would be of officers across all civil services, both men and women, and armed forces as well. But initially we wanted to do this for the women, simply because if I go back to my conversations with these 10 ladies, none of them really wanted to talk about themselves. They said the story is not about me. I'm happy to say what the problem was, what the solution was, how I came to that solution, how I workshopped and kind of worked with my team. I don't want to talk about myself. That to me was very different, very good. Something that I felt needed to be told. Rather than in the face, see me, I'm doing this, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere, kind of. That's where, yeah.
Wonderfully well explained, ma'am. Actually, a voice is often best heard in print. And while people speak and speak on television, and these things are often dissipate into the thin air. What you write and publish will remain for posterity. It's difficult to erase. And while recordings can be good, I think the written word has much more power that way, and most people would agree. Even today, when you have a book in your hand, it is somehow there's a sense of permanence. And that permanence is what we often crave. So, ma'am, before I come to two outstanding ladies out of the 10, I'm sorry I'm calling them ladies, but just to emphasize the fact that you've written about women officers, in your own career, so many outstanding colleagues, seniors must have inspired you, and you work closely with them. So any instances or any happenings or any people you want to talk about before we come to the book itself and the contents?
So many, and so many of you sitting around the table. He's not there with us, but my favorite, Sri Balwant Singh Ji. We were very young when he was the Chief Secretary, but quiet, stood tall, did not speak too much, was not really in the face kind of person, but left his mark with everybody. My guru, Sri J.D. Gupta, sitting right there, taught me all I know about revenue. Everything I know about revenue is my guru there. And how many conversations I've had with him which were delightful over the years about everything. I, as some of you know, Sri R.S. Verma here, there is, in fact, honestly, one of them is definitely in the book. Anuradha's there. As you notice, this is a person, she's a dear friend, but someone I used to look up to. I've always looked up to her because I think I've seen her go through a lot of grit, a lot of difficult times. But honestly, Firoza, also very quietly, in one of the episodes, is another person who was a boss of mine. I used to look up to him and say, I don't want to take names, by the way. If I take names, there are so many that come to my mind.
I didn't ask for take names.
But what I do want to say is that my Chandigarh, Haryana journey, though short in my career span, is what made me who I am. And I think, I'm not saying this because for any other reason, but I'm told that the interview marks I got in the UPSC way back when many years ago, 86, are rather, have never quite been eaten. And that happened only because, without going into details, I was actually pushed to the wall. And I find when you push me to the wall, and is when I deliver my best. So Haryana managed to do that. I feel proud of everything I've done here. I look back, we've had a lot of problems we've been through, because it's not a secret for you all. We've been through a lot. Continues to haunt us. It every sphere, not just one episode, several episodes. But when I look back, I feel, would I do it again the same way? Absolutely.
Very well said, ma'am.
I see a lot of my trainees also, by the way. I have to say hi to them. You need to come here, ma'am. This is your forum. Come, come, come. I'll be waiting for you to. आपके गुरु नहीं है, हमारे गुरु है वो, बहुत पुराने ज़माने के। राम सुविधा।
Sir as his staff officer.
Yeah, come, because we need to. You are the president. We were waiting for you to come to ready.
Flat organization. And not hierarchical at all.
CLS is flat.
Yes.
Ma'am, this was very inspiring what you just said. Coming to Anuradha ma'am, but before we come to Anuradha Gupta ma'am, because she's one of the persons or officers profiled in this book, but your approach, as you said rightly, has not been to profile,
No.
but has been to actually highlight some of the very intense challenges that were faced. And you just said, and some people in the hall may have cringed, I did too, that Haryana managed to do it. I mean, Haryana itself didn't do it perhaps, whatever was happening, pushing you to the wall. And we are in a discussion. I mean, is it society, is it the state, is it the system, is it the country? Who is pushing officers to the wall from which they have to kind of fight back? Who is it? Can we define that entity?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I think what I really like to say is a lot of the war that we are in, the quarrel, the battle, is within ourselves. It's whether so when you're all of us are bright, what happens out there is doing something and not doing something has both pros and cons. And having known those pros and cons, the battle is within, it's nobody else. So you fight with yourself inside to kind of either come out a winner or just be one of them. Yeah. So, it's not just another, but there are several. There is a lady here who worked in the Naxal areas of Maharashtra, and I could, after a while, if you really want to know what, read a little about it. But to just cut a long story short, she had a posse of her security guards killed through a mine. A mine kind of blasted a little after she of G Park, and they all died. And the next day, somebody came in from Mumbai and said, "What are you doing here? Why is a woman posted here?" Which the word was, "Which idiot posted you here?" So she turned around and said, "The government, sir." So he said, "But then you don't have to be here. Please go back." And she actually, I don't know how many people would say that. In that kind of environment, in Gadchiroli, a place where people were scared to come out, she went to the last village for her development work and did not once say, "I want to go back." She spent her entire 2.5 years, went ahead. So you have these winners across India. And that's why I try to pick winners from the northeast as far as Arunachal Pradesh, the west you had Rajasthan, south you had people in Karnataka, north it went up to Punjab, underneath and all India, pan-India politics is where Anuradha came in. Not Anuradha's role was that kind of polio